All right, so we did a whole month of Andor, and the way that it ended, I mean, how could we not go into Rogue One? That's right, it's the post-Andor review of Rogue One. Hey everyone, D here, joined as always with the man, the myth, the legend from Smirking Gun Reviews, Rob Stone.
Yeah, I just have to say, I love it.
Yes. The video Rob sent a video over of apparently my theme, which I have had for years, is well used on Critical Role, and which look, give me a
A
D&D
lot.
reference in with my stuff, I'm all about it.
Oh, it's
Uh,
awesome though.
but yeah, sent me a little compilation of this music playing, I guess, whatever attacks happened, and yeah, full Pavlovian response from the gang there. I really appreciated it. So yeah, we were talking last week. If we just finished up all of Andor, it seemed only appropriate to dive into Rogue One and be like, okay, how does this work? It's the beginning and it's the end. How does it work after watching that whole show? Does it fit in? Is it right? Is it dated? So yeah, we're gonna jump into the show. We're gonna talk about the movie. We're gonna talk about its Andor connections. We're just gonna hang and have a good time and sort of wrap this up in a good, enjoyable way. So, yeah, Rob, I know you were really excited to dive into this and check all this out.
I think it just makes sense. I mean, they literally made this so that it connects to Rogue One,
Mm-hmm.
and Rogue One literally connects to A New Hope. It's to me the best thing they've done or attempted to do to like bring some kind of like attention to parts of Star Wars and tell stories about Star Wars that while it leads to Force stuff and Jedi stuff, it's all about the actual like people, and Andor has done that amazingly, and a lot of people are already having like Andor like what do we do now?
Yeah. Oh
like
yeah.
like what do we do? And I'm sure that this movie has gotten tons of traction. They've been promoting it a lot more, and I know that like when this came out back in 20, okay, peeps this, everybody. Obama was still in office. He,
Yeah.
I mean, he might have been, it might have been December, what, 16th or something like that, but he
Yeah.
was still in office.
Yeah, 2016 when this came out, and yeah, there was this is when they were doing the jouncing every year. So we had Force Awaken before, and this was the kind of new one. We were gonna do Star Wars every Christmas,
Yeah.
and this was a big hit at the time, if I remember
I
correctly.
remember when I went to see it, I was like I was about 6 months into my current job, which I'm now about 9 years into.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a basic, almost a 10-year-old movie already. This happened. This is after The Force Awakens,
Right.
and I think it's better than The Force Awakens. Um, just because, in retrospect, looking at it, I enjoy this more. And when I sat down to watch it, the only thing that I was like thinking about that wasn't as fun was
Mm-hmm.
knowing that I'm sitting here taking notes and like
A little
going over
distracting.
things, a
Yeah.
little more distracting, because when I found myself just like I stopped taking notes, I was just like sucked in. I'm like, well, what if you forget this? I'm like, you're not gonna forget none of this right now. You've just crammed for the test like right before right before you did it. So I have all the information in me. But yeah, I can't wait to watch this like without like all the. It'd been a long time since I've
Yeah.
seen it, so now I can't wait to see it without having to go. Okay, I have to like think about all this other stuff. But I'm glad I did take all the notes because I did find a lot to say and think about for Andor. I don't know how extensive your notes were, but I was seeing things that I didn't catch. Um, things that I was like so happy with. And there's a few things that I think I can still be like say, yeah, you know,
Hmm.
um,
Well, I mean, there is the kind of like, again, Disney had gotten Star Wars. We had Force Awakens the year before. Rogue One is, we're trying to tie things in. So this is really, like young Disney Star Wars. And I know production was all kind of up in the air. We had, was it Gareth Evans directed most of the film, and then Tony Gilroy came in with a lot and wrote and directed a lot of the reshoots. There were scenes that were in the commercial that were not in the movie, and that's not entirely a new thing. I mean, in the '80s, there were tons of those. There were like scenes filmed for commercials that were never going to be part of the movie. So you would see some things, and I know there's a director's cut. I didn't bother watching that one. I just went with the straight theatrical release. Um, so, and it's definitely trying a few things. I think the biggest differences for me that kind of in linking Andor in with Rogue One is Andor is definitely more of a quieter espionage. I mean, it's television, so you're going to do a lot more kind of scenes like this. Movies tend to be much bigger and action oriented, and that is kind of the biggest difference. Is the show is more of an espionage spy thriller, and the movie is definitely a very action oriented adventure. Um, the music definitely wanted to keep reminding you that this was Star Wars. Um, and I think it works with that action orient. I think in a connection to Andor, it is kind of a bit of a okay. It's not a bit of a. It's a huge tonal shift. So that's probably kind of the biggest thing. I don't think it's horrible, but I also think as an overall statement for myself at least, especially watching Andor and realizing that this exists because Rogue One was successful because of all the things that they did. So I realize it's kind of a snake eating its own tail criticism. But to me, the weakest parts of Rogue One, when it was trying to connect in so much with Star Wars and A New Hope and all of those moments. Tarkin, and look, the CGI, it's not going to be the best. It's not the best. In that case, I think sparingly would have been great if we just had the first shot that we have of Tarkin. He's reflected as he's gazing out at the Death Star, and you just see his reflection. I'm like, that's what they should have stuck with. Have him be completely dismissive of Krennic, so he doesn't even look at him. And that way you can kind of avoid that uncanny valley that happens the minute he turns around and starts emoting. Um, the C3PO R2D2 was like, ah, little things like this. But what was your take? What were your kind of big hits? What's your overall going from Andor into Rogue One? Was it a clean fit for you? Were there some differences? Did things stand up, or did you like, fuck it, I'm doing the adventure here?
kind of all of those things.
Okay, very good.
I existed while I was watching this movie in many different ways of thinking about it. Because I can do that. I mean, yeah, tonally, this is the action set piece, and again, it's like, yeah, we don't have Andor without this, and we get something like, for me and you, I think, because we like shows like Agents of Shield, and we like the human element, and
Yeah.
again, something we haven't seen. The first thing that I thought, one of the first things I thought was that this should have, like, again, like I think about a lot of things now, is this would have been a better show. It almost makes me wish, that this Rogue One almost didn't exist, so that we could have a show where they go after the Death Star plans now,
Sure.
where we meet Jyn Erso and Galen Erso. We can have like all that stuff, but we can't. That's just not how it is. It's not how things went. It's just what we have. right? This is just how it is. And it is like a 2 hour without credits, right? If you don't count credits, this is about 2 hours and 5 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's trying to do a lot.
Yeah.
It's a ticking clock movie. It's when I really like what I think is great is like how great Andor did at setting up Rogue One after the fact, because everything in Andor was like a ticking clock, sort of, especially near the end. And it carries over into this, except now we have to, like, it's about the action. When Andor ends, we know that the action's about to kick off. So it's kind of like going, we waited through this really good TV series. And then what if Rogue One was coming out now? That would be amazing, because then they could go, okay, we built up for this, and now we're giving a movie. We all the things that led to this, and if they could remake it, great. But we can't. It's just, again, that's not
Sure. It's just how
happen.
it is.
Here we are, and you have to, like, I'm watching it going like, they didn't think that this was gonna be. This wasn't in their heads to be a TV show or anything. We're just trying to make a good movie, and I do, like, one of the biggest complaints, and I watched my own old review, which I actually kind of like recommend people looking if you really want. It's one of the oldest videos I have, like, from when I was still drinking back then, back in 2016. And my opinion, one of the things I brought up was that people complaining about how these aren't characters that I care about. They all just die, and I'm like, but like, there's been movies like this before, like plenty of them, especially in the older days, with like movies like The Dirty Dozen and stuff, where they go in with a mission and they're probably not making it out. You know what I mean? And it's heroic deaths.
Right.
And in this, it's one heroic death after another, and I think people have a hard time with it. Like, our heroes have to live, and we've talked about this recently about real heroes die.
Sure.
Real heroes sacrifice themselves to get the thing done so that everybody has the chance to live in peace and get those opportunities to fight the evil. And so stories like this have to happen, because to me, it's inspiring, and it tells people that, like, yeah, if something gets as bad as it gets, there's going to be a time where, because they have to face it in this movie, right? They almost don't do anything again. Like, the end of Andor, right? They're still arguing about whether or not the message is true. And here we are still arguing and belaboring it here in Rogue One. Again, because they didn't know.
Sure.
So they just had to do it again. But like, here they are going, what are we doing? We have no chance. And we have that same whole thing of like, we might not go to war, and we will lose everything by not fighting. If these people don't step up to sacrifice themselves, I'm sure that they wanted to get out of there. Everybody wanted to live. I mean, even at the end of the movie, you could, Jin and Cassian should have just, if they knew they were going to die, they could have just stayed up there with Krennic and kicked his body. But they wanted to live. It didn't work out for them, and they accepted it, and they knew at the end that they had done something to give everyone else a chance. That unselfishness, and I really liked how this still conveyed that really, really well. And I don't need to know Donnie Yen's backstory, and I don't need to know the pilot's backstory. I don't need to hear about how they have some place and family and all these other things. It's like, that's not the purpose of these characters. Even Jin, who is the main character in this, like, after watching Andor, there's scenes in this where you go, like, where she's mad at him for wanting to kill her. He was going to kill her father, right? And he doesn't, and she gives him lip, and he's just like, oh, it's really nice of you to be able to decide now that you're, part of this. Some of us have been living it. And I liked that a lot, because just because you're following a character doesn't mean that you're meant to agree with that person.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people have that in their head, that, well, this is Jin's movie, and so we have to, like, just be on her side. It's like, no, you don't. So like same thing with like Walter White. Yeah, I watched it, but it doesn't mean that you think he should win. You shouldn't go, yeah, you know, this is perfectly reasonable. I get a cancer and I just start dealing meth, you know, like, cause that's just him. And I agree. That's, you know,
Yeah.
like, I
Walter's
think,
the protagonist, but he is not the
yeah.
hero.
So I think a lot of people get that in their heads that I have to like agree with what's happening or what a character's motivations are and everything. It's like, no, you don't. You are allowed to like not like this person and you don't have to agree with their choices. And I think that some of that got lost in translate. You know, like people watch something, oh, go figure, Star Wars fans not understand something, um, like subtleties and things like that. If it doesn't involve Han, Luke, or Leia, or some Ewoks or a quirky droid, oh my God, I don't know how to handle this story. You know, like, uh, but for those of us out there that understand story character a little bit better than that and can lose the nostalgia for good storytelling, I think that this really did a good job. And it's not perfect by any means. I caught plenty of things that I was just like, yeah, like the R2D2 and C3PO thing. It's in there, but you want to know what I was thinking at the time, even though I was like, I know, like, yeah, I get it. But to me, I also was thinking this tells me, like, the tension wise, I think it's still actually seeing them kind of creates tension because it tells you how close we are to A New Hope. Like it says,
Sure.
Princess Leia's here and they're about to bust out. Like it to me, that's kind of like what I allowed myself to think about was just, yes, it's a cameo, but it also puts us in a sense of time and where
Sure.
we are in the Star Wars universe. Just done with, I mean, what would have been better, you know what I mean? Like have Leia out there too, and have like Bail Organa sending her off, you know, like all those things. They could have added a lot more fan service in this. And I thought that just the little way that they peppered it was nice because they're always going to try, like,
Well,
let's
and
face it, they're always going to try to work in something that makes people go, I know that.
that was their mission again, is you connect this to the beginning, but the beginning of New Hope. So yeah, there are things that might be a little cheesy, but they work. And honestly, things like the pilots, in the Battle of Scarif overhead, when you have, Gold Leader and you have Red Leader and you have those guys, and I'm like, okay, obviously it is like a little fan service, but on the other hand, well, yeah, they'd be there. And
Yeah.
that's kind of cool, to be
That's,
perfectly honest. And
yeah.
yeah, Red 5 gets killed so that Luke could become Red 5. I mean, it's like there are little things like that I definitely enjoy. Um,
The
but
Krennic, the Tarkin stuff, again, I just turn my brain off.
sure.
And I look at it and I go, yeah, I know it's not him, but none of this is real.
They also made him like weirdly tall.
Hmm.
So he's like Darth Vader size when he is definitely not supposed to be. I mean, the actor's only 6 feet tall, and yeah, he might be a little above Krennic, but he's always like looming above everyone. I'm like, okay, see, that makes it even a little weirder. But again, I mean, this is part of what they're doing. To me, it's one of those where it's like you should do a little more. Um, Pepper it a little bit more without having whole scenes of him walking around, because at that point it's like you might as well recast the actor, and how do you do that
Yeah.
with Peter Cushing? So
Yeah. I mean, there could have just been messages or radio, frequencies, like, oh, it's a message from Tarkin, put it up on the whatever. And they probably, if they had done a hologram, it might have,
hologram would have worked fine. Oh, totally.
yeah.
Totally.
But I think they also wanted to flex that muscle that they'd been doing since what
Mm-hmm.
was it Ant-Man that they first did? Disney started really doing the de-aging stuff.
Tron Legacy. You had Clue, which
Oh
was a
yeah,
digitized
yeah,
younger version of Jeff Bridges.
that's right.
I think that
Um,
was the earliest, like, maybe it's not quite ready yet. And yeah, this was a few years after that, but
And
you know,
you can see now that they've gotten even better at it. And whether or not you think that's a good thing, fine. I loved seeing. I know it's not Carrie Fisher. I know it, but it's. I just. It
look,
hit. I.
Tarkin's such a great freaking character. It's so hard to use him. So yes, I totally get it.
I mean, I just don't. I don't care enough to be like, "Ugh, hey, how could they? How did it just no?
Hmm.
He would be there. They should have used a hologram, but he's there, and I like it. I Cushing didn't get enough. Like the only thing that sucks is that Peter Cushing died, and that
Yeah,
because he just didn't get enough screen time in the original A New Hope. You know what I mean? We lost some of these characters, and honestly, we nobody's owed any of this. So like the fact that we got a story that tried to incorporate him. I mean, he's been in books that I've read and things like that, and it's always all these characters come
and
and go.
animation you could
Yeah,
always do.
yeah.
That's a
There's
different
always
thing, but
yeah. And
so
but
yeah,
there's so many things like okay, first because we this is post Andor, so we should talk about some of the things like I caught like right away. I mean, yeah, Andor is not the main focus, but we
sure.
we do get the Kivik scene right away. Like, or is that his name?
Tivik,
Kivik.
Tivik.
We go right to that. Um, I did find it interesting that the rebels were a little more like Luthen in Rogue One than they were in Andor. They
Yeah,
were the ones who were like saying, "Oh, kill him, just kill him." When they were struggling with that in Andor, when they were, like making Saw feel bad. But I mean, Saw was off the reservation at that point,
sure.
but
Sucking down the gas.
yeah, sucking down. Yeah, that again, that makes you go. It kind of answers that question that I had. Was like, what's up with
Totally
him? Is he
does.
just sucking on oxygen? When I saw Rogue One reverse, I was like, wow, man. But no, man, he's just gassing it up.
Especially in the way he goes, "Are you one of them?"
Yeah,
You're like,
that was
"Oh, the
so cool.
paranoia
And
coming
you know what it
in."
made me think of? And I haven't even seen this movie. So anybody who wants, yes, eventually there will be a Rob's never seen Blue Velvet. I've never seen Blue Velvet, but I know Dennis Hopper likes to use the nitrous. And
Yeah.
that's what I think of. It was like the the Star Wars version of Dennis
Sounds
Hopper.
like, "Don't look at me! Don't look at me!" Sorry, when you see it, that'll make more sense.
Okay. Um, but I did think that was interesting that they were more like, yeah, just kill Galen Orso on site, get him done, like bomb the place. They send a squadron to bomb the place, and then but in Andor now they're like, oh, I don't know, I don't know
Well,
if we should be
it's
doing that.
I mean, that's the thing because you're right. It's that shift from the slow espionage to the action oriented. I mean, it's very Spielbergian. Like once it starts, it's just blam, next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing. You don't get a time, you know. It's like suddenly the Guardians are like Andor's best friend. They're all hanging out and going there. Whereas in Andor, those guys would have like been dropped off at another planet. They would have been tied up. There would have been mass. There would have been, there are all sorts of things. So things are moving, I think, really quickly in the show. And I think that also covers up a lot of the issues. Like, I get the order to kill Urso before there's a Death Star, but they know it blows up Jeddah City. They've seen it. So there's no point in killing him. Capturing him would be a much smarter thing to try and get the knowledge that he has. But again, it's like, no, action, go, shoot, and, blow up. Also, was Cassian's mission kind of fucked up with a lot of the rebel fleet and the ships all suddenly showing up? It's like they're there to back him up, but it's like it almost kind of fucks up whatever plan that he has going on whenever they show up. So, but again, it's like it's action, it's go, we're doing things. Um,
Yeah,
and that is part of the thing you would just have to accept with the genre shift is, there's a different motivation behind everything now.
yeah. And I mean, I said it before. I mean, this is a ticking clock movie. Like
Right.
everything is urgent. And so again, another complaint people had was like, we're just moving, we're like going here and then we're there and we're here. And I'm like, you mean how like people edit scenes and you go to one scene to the next, like in everything? Well, why we're suddenly in another place? Like, so what? It's a big galaxy. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of moving parts to this plan, and they have to like they're showing you all the places that they had to go to do the thing. That's why, like other like. So what if they put a title card out there? Otherwise, the complaint would be, well, I don't know where we are. Well, they just showed you. It's one of those the complaints that I
those are dumb
heard about
complaints.
this movie. This was like. Nobody was calling this movie woke or any other bullshit. They were just some of the complaints they were making were just like, are you just complaining to complain now?
But this is different than what I've seen before.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost comes down to it, which is a shame because one of the things that I noticed very quickly, which was great about the original Star Wars, is how dirty and lived in everything did. I mean, they did get their look very correct, I think, for interesting shots, for interesting places, for a world that's totally lived in. And yeah, these are Star Wars beggars on the streets, and this is a dusty desert city, and all that stuff. I mean, I think their look was fabulous.
Yeah. And I think, again, a lot of what people complain about are really things that are like saying, in a way, like we should have made this a TV show. We want more. If people are going, I want to care, then yeah, maybe they should have done something more with this. Maybe this should have been like whatever. But it's just it is the way it is.
They took a chance on a one-off story,
Yeah.
and they got to cram as much stuff and action and remind you it's Star Wars and connect into everything and give, because also with the fans, there's a lot of things that they want, one of which we do get. We will get to that when we get past Battle of Scarif.
I do really like how both the movie starts abruptly and ends abruptly. Like we just get the usual a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and then just boom, hit hard music cue. But also that it has that classic Star Wars beginning.
Oh yeah, very very classic. Like the planet, the triangle formation,
music.
The ring
going down. We're always following a ship somewhere, just all that, and then seeing the scope of the cinematography and everything, like, and then counter that to the end where it's just like hope. Yeah. Like, holy shit, did this movie end? Like, boom. Like, well, even we literally don't have any more movie. Because the next movie
we're done. Yeah, it's like, and start the other movie right now. That's it. You watch Andor, then Rogue One, and then A New Hope, and you just, that's your like weekend of back-to-back programming for you. Well, and again, even in that opening shot, when Krennic lands down and you get the white on the black rock and everything, it always used to laugh like, why did he park so far away? He doesn't land on the crops. He's being considerate, even though he's about to fuck everything up. He doesn't land on the guy's crops. He parks out and walks in, takes the distance in. So, got to hand it to Krennic. He started being slightly considerate.
Yeah, and this beginning just makes me go, man, Mads Mikkelsen is barely in this movie. Like like this is not his movie. I hope they give him something else to do in the Star Wars universe at some point. I don't know. I'd hate to think that he's just Galen Erso because he's such a good actor. But what I also like about this is, again, Jin and Galen and all these people, they're just now like whatever he was or was doing, he's now to me just like a person just trying to live. And now, like the Empire does, it comes and destroys families. It comes and destroys everything. It takes and takes and takes. And these people were just fine. There's a little bit more here also where we know like she has memories of them hanging out together, with Krennic when she was
Yes.
younger, and there's more, there's backstory there, like, and I have to stop my brain from going, well, what if we get a Krennic show? What do we get? Like, what if we get Ben Mendelsohn to
Let's
do
just
like
say
a
more Ben Men. I mean, look, we could always take more Ben Mendelsohn, but yeah,
to see potential there of like more story, and if this was like this, but again, action movie, heavy on the Star Wars, especially the war part. I really dug all that. And Saw. Okay, this was the first thing that I put out, was like, Saw knew this was coming, but I forgot that this takes place like way in the past, and it got me again thinking about the timeline and
well,
how.
like how much time has they don't really give you an idea that, but I mean, how are we supposed to, is Jin like, you know, the standard 18s, late teens, early 20s? Is she later 20s in this? You know, is this 10 years after dad was taken, 15 years after dad was taken?
Yeah, because she says it was 15 years ago, right? Like when she talks to Saw, it's like been 15 years. It was one
Oh,
of
she
the.
does. Okay, yeah. She does mention something. I didn't write that down, but you're right. That does sound familiar. So yeah, that would make a lot more
And she'd
sense.
still only be in her early 20s.
Yeah.
But it's still like, okay, so that means that all of this was happening pre Revenge, pre Revenge of the Sith.
No. We would
So,
say 15 years ABY or BBY. So
no, I
if
mean
this
like
is
the actual setup of the plans, like when like Krennic's like talking about, I'm the one who first voiced about a weapon, and it's like, well, you would have had to have done that. Like, what's the real timeline here? Like, because he comes to them. Okay, they were working together probably on Coruscant in that memory,
mhm.
and Jin was like real little, like maybe 1-2 years old. Okay, so 15. I just have a hard time with like how long it takes to plan things and
Well,
do all
if
that. And I'm like, how does this even work within the time period that the empire was active and had taken things over? And how much was there anything going on prior to the, like, what was the empire setting up, or the emperor setting up before this?
well, they get the deaths. I mean, if we follow all the canon and movies and connections and such, they retrieve the Death Star plans from the after the Battle of Geonosis, the second Battle of Geonosis, from the Trade Federation, because I think it was originally probably a build off of the Mining Guild as a mining ish,
That's right.
platform that would be raised. So I think it's post Clone Wars, the beginning of the Empire, when they start investigating that. So that's a good, what, 1920,
Okay.
1920 years before the Battle of Yavin. So that gives us our big time frame
Okay.
where they could have been working early on. There is some, I know, backstory between Krennic and Urso. Is Krennic is kind of like one of those geniuses that find other geniuses to do things, and is like a talent, a collector. And so he made connections in with Urso earlier along, I think even in like, college and studies. And then once the Death Star plan came up, they're like, hey, you're the laser guy. And that's how that happened. So yeah, I think really you look at the development of the Death Stars pretty much over the Empire, post birth of the Empire, all the way up to, as soon as they finish it, it gets blown up.
Yeah. Thank you though for reminding me that, because I forgot about that detail in Attack of the Clones,
Yeah.
right? So that's, yeah, that kept right past me because I haven't watched or thought about those movies that often. So thank you, seriously, because I was just really struggling. I've been struggling with the timeline that they've been trying to jam so much into that
Well, and Legends had a slightly different development and area and things like that. So I've got to often separate in my head what the new canon is versus the old Legends storylines were. Uh,
Also, I again, all these things that happen, and the way that like people like Saw Gerrera, that was like some of my first early notes, was talking about his like descent into madness, and how what we saw in Andor kind of even pay off here even more, showing just how much he had gone off the rails. Like how, well, the first time I saw this movie, I was like, why is he acting like this? Like, again, like,
oh yeah,
I knew he was hard, but like the whole thing with spies and everybody against me, I really think that Andor helps this movie explain more about Saw Gerrera, because like when the pilot gets brought there and he just immediately like, I've got all this information, and they're treating him like an enemy. And I mean, he is Imperial, but it was like this, there was like this kind of sense of like that I didn't get and I didn't understand watching, and now I do, because he would be that kind of guy at that time. And again, they didn't set that up well themselves, but
what
Andor did help that part.
what they have done with Saw Gerrera, quite honestly, is freaking genius. Oh, from taking a character, because this wasn't the first time. He was already seen once before. Was it Clone? His first
He was in the
set
Clone Wars,
in
yeah.
Clone Wars was before that. Yeah. So you already taken like the edge of his life, and yeah, he was like edgy and stuff, but not in the same way. And then being able to take that character and build up so much backstory in other media, in Rebels, in and then in through Andor. Uh, look, Forrest Whitaker look, man, he commits, and I would love to see him pop up again as Saw in things, just because it's just they keep making so much interesting stuff from him.
Yeah. He's this rebel that nobody had ever seen before. He was the extremist. He was the one who was like, you're not going far enough, like,
Mm-hmm.
like you think like, there's right wing, and then there's the extreme right wing, or there's the left wing and there's the extreme left. Like the people that are out there like, we want progress, and then there's Saw who'd be like, I want progress too, and I think progress is by assassinating somebody, like, I'm going to go out and blow up a bunch of shit, and that's how I get my progress,
What
and
Luthen say?
there's something to
Call
be
it
said
whatever
for
you
that.
will.
There's
Let's
something to be
call
said
it.
for that. There's parts of people that want, there's always going to be. I think that it was correct to add a character like that to the Star Wars universe. It fills it out more and it makes it more realistic, because you're not going to have everybody be on the same page or want the same things that are on your side, that you're going to disagree with fundamentally. And that even though you disagree, as long as you guys can come together on what's right in the end, and he was just that character who got too lost. He had saw too many things. He did too many things, and then snorting all that gas.
Yeah.
Stay in school, kids. Don't do
Yeah.
drugs.
That's huffing gas is never a good idea. Just a bad thing. And look, I love the explosion on Jeddah, but it was like, wow, man, that wall of Earth is coming at a very slow pace at every.
Yeah.
Which to me was just kind of the hilarious comparative, because I mean, all right, K2 is in the ship and is able to swing down and grab him, but it's like the explosion, it's coming. Quick, get on, run out. We got to get out of here and get out and outrun the thing, and we can make it. And then later on Scarif, it's like, fuck it. We're just going to chill out here on the beach and just wait for death to come.
Yeah,
He hasn't
right.
even trying to get to a ship.
Yeah, right. Why wasn't there somebody zipping in like, come on?
Well, because, I mean, look, the film is also designed, yes, it's magnificent. Everybody dies. It's a suicide mission. Everybody gives it all. This is what sacrifice is in order to bring hope. So yes, everybody is predisposed, but literally everybody is like predestined to die immediately after they do the one thing they're supposed to do. In which case, we can go blame the Jedi healer back on Yavin. She fucked up Andor. No, but the pilot dies right after they were able to make the radio connection and call into the ships up above. Why they didn't try to talk to the other ships, the Blue Squadron, and see if they could talk, I don't know. But again, lots of editing. It's momentum. I don't care.
It's a war is happening. Shit's going down.
Yeah.
And it's again, I think it's kind of like what Tony Gilroy did with Andor, about sacrifice, about what war looks like. What like all the original movies and the prequels and the sequel trilogy, they've all just, everybody's got plot armor up the ass except for Harrison Ford, who just wanted out of the whole damn thing and then still came back. Why'd you come back? Oh, sorry, I haven't seen the movie.
You're gonna bring me back again, damn it. You're gonna fucking kill me.
Make sure you get the Ghostbusters to kill my ghost.
But and we had the Guardians get killed as soon as, which, I mean, great scene. I'm one with the Force, and the Force is with me, and that whole walk across in order to hit the line again, beautiful. It's like, and purpose done, you die.
Yeah. I mean, but I think that needed to be done. It's like, we're like, but at the same time, I'm everybody just I mean, what would happen? What if Tony Stark didn't die at the end of Endgame? You know what I mean? I can't even think about a different version of this movie where, you know what I mean? I wouldn't want one.
No, it would suck. I mean, it's all about that sacrifice, and that is something.
Infinity War was, he wins because you guys weren't willing to sacrifice anybody. And the second one is about how they had to be willing to sacrifice and lose and be willing to, and they did. And that's heroes die. And and now what is anybody? When are you going to bring back Tony? We shouldn't.
No, we shouldn't. And look, I'm not going to get into a Dune discussion right here.
But what I mean is the same thing here, where I could go, why couldn't Jyn and Cassian ride off into the sunset? Well, because that's not what the story is about.
It's not what it's about. Well, I mean,
because if you look at Jyn, it's kind of like the sins of our fathers, paying for the sins of our fathers. The paying for the people, the generation behind us who wanted to take over the galaxy. Now it's up to us to revert and pay the price for the choices that they made, so that more people we can get back on track. It's history of the world. It's history of this, Star Wars. It's universal. I mean, like you had talked about, Tony Gilroy didn't make Andor because of our current political climate. He made it because this is our history. This is the way things go. This is cyclical, or is that the right term?
Yes.
That it just did, and we use that phrase. Those who are forgetting the past are doomed to repeat it. And then we've already done it. Like that, almost like we should be walking out the door hearing it. Okay. You're leaving your house for work. Don't forget that those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. You're right. Yesterday I had a shitty attitude at my job. I should probably improve it today.
Well, it's funny because I have often reflected that onto a lot of people. Always ask, why is there suffering in this world? It's because unfortunately that's the only way some of us learn. If it doesn't suck, if we don't hate it, then we're not going to pay attention to it, and we're ready to do it again. We suffer, so we try and listen not to do that shit again. And it's unfortunate that as a society, too many people start forgetting, and then the rest of us who do remember have to go, no, wait, stop.
Yeah. And I mean, the character of Jyn herself, she had to experience some things on top of what she'd already experienced. One of the things I like about her, even more now than before, and again, it influenced off of Andor, is because she's being asked to like, hey, like, why do you think like this? Why don't you want to be a part of this? And it's like, because she's been hurt by both sides, and that argument's been made in the Andor series of like, the Empire screwed me, the rebels have screwed me, everything I have is lost because of one or the other. Why should I care about either? When she goes, it's not that hard as long as you don't look up, like at the flags, at the changes and everything. You could disappear in the galaxy and not be worried about what everybody else is going through. And I think that that's a thing about her characters. She was only thinking about like what had been done to her, and that's valid. But once she finally got to see the bigger, broader purpose, and saw that, you know, like what her dad had given up and things like that, that she finally came alive, and then clashed with Andor about it, and till fundamentally they both disagreed and still came together to do the right thing.
Well, and I think that's the great thing that the show actually does, is show why there does become such a quick connection between him and Jyn. Because, I mean, obviously, it's a film. We just have time. We have these two characters together. Now we get this backstory. And we have Bix, and we have all these people, and how we trust and doesn't trust and do that. And the one thing that I got to see throughout this story is like, oh, because Jyn is like him. Yeah, initial resistance, but the minute she sees the clarity, she is 100% committed, and she will go all the way and do whatever has to be done in order to get the job done, which is very much what Andor is. So that one moment where they have that like kind of quiet staring at each other's faces near the end, it's like you could see why he's doing this and pushing, like, I've already committed, and fuck, she's doing it just as good as anyone, as me doing it, as Luthen doing it, as Val doing it, you know, any of them dived into it. So to me, that was one of the kind of nice things with this, because yeah, in movies you always have a male and a female, and they have to be romantic because that's always how things work. Seeing all of that history, you can see why Andor would be happy to spend this moment here with her at the end, you know, satiated with the journey that he has done.
Speaking of his journey, they brought up when they got taken in by Saw's people and locked up, and he's talking about how, you know, like, you know, what this is are you not used to this? And it made it sound like he had never been in a cage before. It's like, this is my first time, and I'm like, no, yeah. So I think that the movie again didn't know, but I would say that that's one little thing, that's one detail that they kind of missed when they made Andor, was that no, he's been in jail before, he's been in a cage before.
Oh yeah, there would definitely have been some differences if this was coming post-Andor as opposed to pre, just because of how they were able to really tweak and refine the character, you know.
But
so yeah,
I just leaving out, like, that's one of those things that they just kind of like plot holes or whatever you want to say. But it was just one line.
Yeah, well, and one of those was also just considering how in Andor that whole last trilogy was setting up. We get the Death Star, we're told about it, we've got a pursuit, and we even have that one discussion over the council chamber before Andor leaves to go meet up with Tivik. And obviously, this movie is made first, so it has to go along the lines with, we're just discovering the Death Star now. But that was one of those only ones where it was like, they almost leaned too much into it, so now there's a lot of repetitive, like, doubting or not doubting, and we've already kind of done this dance. But that was the only kind of like continuous plot thing that stood out. But also, this was made first, and then they did the other stuff, so you kind of have to just run with that.
Yeah. Another interesting aspect of this compared to looking at Andor is, again, the Imperial angle.
Right.
And this, our Imperial is God, I always say his name wrong. Krennic.
Krennic, yeah.
Ben Mendelsohn. In Andor, we get Cyril and Dedra and Patagat. We get a whole bunch of Imperial people. And we see what life is like being those people on every kind of level. There's a character that kind of symbolizes just about anybody in Andor. But in this, we have everybody's gone now. Okay. Dedra and Pendergast, they all these other guys, Juno, they've all paid the price. They all like had these lofty ambitions and were all taken down by their own, whatever. And this, then for me, for Andor audiences, right? This is the fall of Krennic.
Yeah.
Right. To me, this is a really good payoff because we get to see the guy who set up the Gorman thing, the guy that we now know, like, he had this, he wanting to make the Death Star for a really long time. He's been getting all this stuff. And he's like, we've been watching everybody in below him, right? Everything in Andor was, all those people were worried about him.
Right.
There was talk of Tarkin and, whatever, but like they weren't visible threats. So now the only guy left is Krennic, and the only people he answers to are Tarkin, the Emperor, and Vader. And so getting to see his, like, after those movies, and again, because this came out before, just a happy accident that it all fits really well together to me, is seeing his ambition carried over, and they even bring up, like, and I know that in this they're alluding to like the pilot or whatever, but in my brain, I'm allowing it to add all the mess ups that they had in the show.
Sure.
I'm just making that leap for myself and putting that there because of what I know now and not what they didn't know then. So seeing Krennic be like, I want the, like this, and this is my thing, and facing off against Tarkin, who, just is telling him and like on one hand he's like, oh, it all works and you should be applauded, and I'm taking it over, I'm taking it from you, this thing that's yours that you've been spending all this time with. And again, all his ambitions, all the things he did, all the ways that he drove himself crazy himself, and all the people that he rode and got, just to get to where he wanted, and it's still not enough. In the end, somebody is going to take it from you, and you're on their side. It shows what fascists do.
Oh yeah, they just consider the next one. Yeah.
If they're gonna, first they go after the little people, and then they work their way up the food chain until it's your turn. And yeah, I mean, the way it's written, of course, he fails, and that's what's going to happens. He's actually lucky that he got taken out by the Death Star. I mean,
he's actually taken out by the Death Star. He's the one person who is literally shot by the Death Star. They take off the top of the tower, and then everyone's killed with the explosion. That was kind of funny.
That's metal, man. But like, also just Ben Mendelsohn, the way he plays it. I mean, going to Vader's scene, even though he was like called there, it almost felt like he was doing like I'm going over my boss's head.
Sure.
Like, I'm not going to the owner, which is the Emperor, but I'm going to go over my boss's head to try to like talk to a guy who clearly he's afraid of. Right? He talks a good game, and then it just takes one little shift of Vader, like, okay, and then he can't help himself. He should just be happy that he got out of Mustafar alive, but then he had to throw in that little thing. I mean, you mean it's still mine?
So I'm still in charge, right? Don't make me call the manager.
When he says, don't choke on your own ambitions. Like, and James Earl Jones, just, that it's like, what's so weird about Darth Vader now for me is because I know that it's Anakin Skywalker. Like, it used to be, there was a mystique to Vader, but now that I know, like, and we've seen enough of behind the mask, that all I see is like burnt up Hayden Christensen in my head going, saying all these things. And he's a little less threatening to me, but I like
Sure.
that he's still threatening to them. Like, yeah, his powers and all that, but I still just see little Annie. But also, God, how agonizing must it be to be Darth Vader? Like, just absolutely agonizing to be in a tank all the time because you're so fucked up that you have like, like,
When I was a kid, um, Return of the Jedi was my favorite Star Wars movie. I like
yeah.
the Ewoks. Plus, we had Luke as a Jedi, and we had all those cool things. Um, so I read the novelization of that movie repeatedly, over and over and over again. And there is a whole section where they talk about Vader and living, and how he's always like attempting in the tank, attempting to use the Force to heal himself, and it always like gets to a point, but then it flops and it all comes back, and he's just got this constant like attempt to fix himself thing, but it's off. That was yeah, I
I
love
remember
that
that.
book. It really gives it a lot of great backstory and with things, and I'm sure with further novelizations they've done even more.
Was that
Uh,
Shadows of the Empire?
Shadows of the Empire also very good. I read that one later on.
Oh, I
Uh,
did. I just didn't know if that was the book that had that in it. But yeah, I don't know what book is that.
well, that is, if I remember correctly, that was the Return of the Jedi
Oh, the
novelization.
novelization. That's
Yeah,
right. You just said that. Sorry.
where they
Um,
also talk about how the darkness is what's corrupted the Emperor's visage, and why he looks so old and thing is it's the dark energies over time degrading him, which is why when they do the Force lightning kind of change, I didn't really like that, because I was like, no, it's not a wound, it's his own internal evil. But I've also heard interpretations where they're like, no, he always looked like that, and he just got rid of his Force produced visage. And there's lots of things, but novelization of Return of the Jedi is what I'm recommending here, folks.
Oh, okay. So there are some returning things in this. Did you catch Melshi?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, because he was established here, so he's always been fun to see back. And they got him right back with the same haircut and everything. That was just good
I was so
planning
happy
ahead and
because I didn't
connecting.
know. I didn't even like think about him in Rogue One. He's just a guy telling people put this on the pads. We want to make sure like he was just a rebel.
Mm-hmm.
And then he dies off screen because the one guy goes, "Oh, I got it," and gets shot. But
Yeah, and
Melshi
then
was
we
still
just see
alive. But the
Claudia.
next time we see him, he's just laying there dead. As another guy who got to do it. But I called him the red shirt that was going to die in Andor, and he doesn't. And seeing him working with the rebels at the end of Andor, training them, and then him popping, like, to me, it was like the first time I ever noticed him. So I was like so happy. I was like, oh my God, they got him too. He's in this. And you're like, they got him to come back and be a bigger role in Andor, show more of where he came from, what his
Mm-hmm.
motivations were. And they didn't have to do that. It's such a small detail. Or the Wampa. Okay,
Right.
the fight on Jeddah with that reminded me a lot of the fights on Ferrix,
Mm-hmm.
the way that whole place looked. But the Wampa was there, the whole group of Sauce people. So I know for sure that was a Wampa. He got way better look at him because he's this big white thing running around. Sorry, I really liked all those little details. I just had to make sure I go the Wampa.
Yeah.
I wrote it in big letters.
Well,
Other
and
little things here. Donnie Yen's acting ability,
yeah,
I think wasn't the best, but
he was just serving a purpose, man.
I mean, did I don't know if he like had to learn. Did he use one of those things where he had to learn his lines phonetically or anything, or did he? Because I felt like
That
his
I yeah, I don't recall any of that stuff. So I mean, I thought that he did good enough for the role that he was meant to play, you know, uh, but it was just kind of like, I just point everybody in the right direction and clear everything up. I'm the Jedi without being a Jedi.
But I wrote down that him and the other guy are the guardians
of the
of
will.
yeah, where is it? Dang it, how come I can't read my own writing now? What'd you say? The guardians
Of the will, I
of the
think.
will. They were the temple guardians, right? Of the Kyber guardians.
Yes.
I really want to know more about that. And I had said that I wouldn't mind seeing like a Donnie Yen, this guy backstory show, like one season or something like that. Like I'm trying to make excuses to make good Star Wars. So I'm trying to like,
Oh,
hey, who else can we like mine for content
a
that like,
full exploration of like Kyber and stuff and what that is and what's there, because they touch on it and they talk on it, but they don't really spend a whole lot of time on with those things. So I mean, that would to me is certainly an area that you could go in and explore more. Either an old Jedi thing, or that's a Ben Mendelsohn and Mads Mikkelsen pair up. Urso and the Kyber. Urso, Kyber, Jeddah, or Jeddah, Kyber, Urso, I guess technically.
I'll say we haven't talked about K2SO.
Who's just freaking this is man. Alan Tudyk is just a gem in this. He is. I mean, his little bit in Andor was like all that you needed, and this just on top of it was like
an extra gift of all of that, and giving him like probably the best, because it's a running thing, but I thought it was one of the most unique. I have a bad feeling about that, and then they cut him off. Hey, like, and he's like, what? Like, but that's his role. He's been saying it the whole time. We've got about 26% chance of doing this. We now have 33% because you said that. And just,
I'll follow you anywhere, Jin. Because Cassian said I had to.
And he's kind of the first. He's the first to fall. Is the droid, and I thought that was, again, purpose done, but like it's one of those things where the droid makes you more sad than any of the people.
Oh, by far.
Except for now, like knowing about Cassian and everything, and all these other people. Like when I saw Mel, she did. I was like, oh, he didn't get out. Now nobody really got out. I mean, except for anybody in a ship already. But it brought that down, and that space battle.
Oh, okay, the battle we've been ground in the sky was awesome.
Scarif, the location, I know it's all make believe and none of it's there, but Scarif all the planet designs were great. Scarif's design is unbelievable. The way it all looked, and just so pretty, and jungle, and the AT-ATs have like camo looks to them, and
seeing all the Imperial stuff in different environments, really we don't get enough of, because
just it's one of the best scenes in any Star Wars is this space fight. I love it so much. The Corvette going into the two Star Destroyers and seeing them bounce off the shield, like, like, there were so many cool things about it. And I just love the whole, like, how the rebellion got into it. Like, all of a sudden they're just there, like, so-and-so already left and they're going and everybody's going, and they,
they're gone and we're here. They're like, and there's a great shot of Mon was kind of like, oh, now we can go. Like, she was just waiting for the excuse to actually go, and now there's nothing holding back. Yeah, great little moments with that.
And and then so Jimmy Smits, because he was available for this, gotta go. Yeah, and they answer that. Look, gotta go to Alderaan. Gotta go tell people that things aren't working out. Things are bad. It's like, you could You didn't have to go home to tell people. You could put it on a message, a hologram. You got to go to the place to stand there and go, everyone, we're screwed. Oh, like we're really screwed. Thanks for telling us.
There's something coming. Oh God, it's right there. Fuck.
I love that shot though of like the Death Star coming over the planet. Like there's so many cool things of how they make the Death Star just like in all the movies, it's just there and then it gets blown up. It's a threat. You know, we see it blow up Alderaan and it almost blows up Yavin. But this was the other movie that like really kind of like Andor and even Attack of the Clones. Like Attack of the Clones was just to me pure nostalgia of like, huh, we know that. Andor's like whispers of it, kind of like whispers of Sith. You know, this weapon and like the hint that and then this movie really gets to show like what it can do. And then you watch A New Hope and then you see what it does do. And I think that even the Death Star is improved by this movie, by the series, because of how limited it was used or was able to be used as a threat.
Well, and I appreciate they have never bothered to try and show us the Death Star entering or exiting hyperspace. They just say, something huge is exiting hyperspace. Then you look over the Death Star there, because honestly,
He's right
I think
behind
that
me, isn't he?
shoot with the giant planet would look so weird.
Yep.
It's like, are there gravitational waves that come off? Is there, I'm like,
oh yeah.
That's
right?
a great
The
thing.
moon enters the planetary orbit or something. It would send everything like crazy.
Oh, it would fuck shit up. Oh yeah, no, that would be really problematic.
Oh yeah, now that like any these things, yeah, like whenever it's.
Though I would imagine that the Death Star does not have the type of gravity well that a moon that size would, because it's a machine. There's a lot of hollow space. There's generators and things. You don't have like a rocky core in the middle of there or any of that stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, it's still big enough that you would have some issues. Okay, so let's touch on, I want to be sure we can jump back to other things, but I definitely want to touch on, look, some people have evil volcanic layers. Vader has a whole damn volcanic planet layer, which that's just how much more of a badass he is. And the having Vader show up at the end of this, I know sent a lot of people off. First, I just love his Death Star showing up as the rebels are escaping and the collisions of ships as it pops out of hyperspace. To me, that was cool.
Heck yeah.
And I am just going to go with the whole point of like, how this all happens is irrelevant. The point was they wanted to get Darth Vader doing lightsaber shit, chasing people down a hallway.
It's to show how like fragile all of this still was.
Yeah.
And I thought that was amazing. And yeah, you put a bunch of poor guys in the way, and and the tension that they had in this movie almost was like just non-stop to the point where I was just like, okay, enough.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Go.
I had written like when I finally was like, all right, enough. And that was when it said reset the antenna. And I went, oh, fuck you. Like just like one more, because I mean, finding the thing, standing, like all these people are blasting away and they're like trying to get the information out of a thing, and it just keeps going. Okay, well, first we gotta find it, then we gotta figure out how to work the thing, then we gotta close the door because the Imperials are starting to come in. We got then K2SO does his best to keep us out, but now we're locked in here. Now we got to shoot and climb up the thing. Now Krennic's here shooting at us. Cassian goes down. I've got to climb this thing, climb over there, get to the top of the thing, finally get there, put the thing in, and it tells me It's like basically saying like you have no
Buffering.
self-purpose in this or something. Yeah, buffering.
Buffering.
Yeah, like or wrong format. This has to be formatted. Like this is you're gonna need to like, you know, do you need like you have to have this software to run this. You need a new data or whatever what do they call those like cards. I can't remember. But just that was when I had been like enough. But it never stops. It doesn't stop. There's the whole, like you said, people bouncing off of Vader's ship, them running, trying to hand it off, and like so that he's literally standing in front of a ripped out part of a ship as Leia gets away, and it's just like, good lord, man. Because when I said it was a ticking clock movie, I mean they literally ran it till the end. That's
Straight
why
to
I'm like,
the end.
the movie just ends. The clock is over. And now we begin, and everything else is history. And it's just like, holy crap. But yeah, the first time, I mean, anybody saw that scene in the theater, and it's all dark. You hear it just red.
Yeah, it's like, but it's also, it is the gift to the audience because it is one of those where it's like, man, we never get to see Vader really being a badass. I mean, hopefully we are going to see that with the Obi-Wan show. I won't talk about that. But yeah, this was like the first time that you actually really get to see Vader being a badass. And I think just as something to give to fans who have been clamoring for that. I mean, yeah, you see stuff in animation, you see that, but yeah, it was never the thing. And of course, it was Anakin before it wasn't Vader because he doesn't get birthed until the end of Revenge of the Sith. And then you never see him again until A New Hope. Yeah. Where he's just imposing and a badass, and for some reason has a James Earl Jones's voice. He had that like, what's the vocal setting on? That's one of the little things on his chest that you get to see. You have the Pee Wee Herman, or you get all the way down to the James Earl Jones. How was a badass? We gotta be like this. All right.
Yeah, that's what all those buttons are for. Like they're just levels. Like, hey,
you better listen to the Emperor. We're gonna get after you.
Yeah, okay. Somebody messes with Vader's suit when he's not in it and changes, like puts all the things all the way up or something. So he comes out, he's all talking like Judge Doom and like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like, like
it would be so much less impressive on that. And poor Krennic, what is that right shoulder? Just a blaster magnet? Didn't he get like nailed twice in the same shoulder at the beginning and end of the movie?
Yeah, it would have been funny if he had mentioned that. Like, the same one? The same bloody one?
What's with the left shoulder? Right, left. Yeah. Well, as I said, it was definitely, I think Rogue One was a great experiment to do to show that you could do something that wasn't a Luke, Leia, and Han story or a Skywalker story or Obi-Wan story and still be able to draw an audience. I think focusing on the look and feel was definitely worked for it. Yeah, the connections in with A New Hope and the greater Star Wars universe were necessary because that was part of the mission of it, and perhaps a bit gratuitous, but I think you needed to take that step to show that you could do bigger stories and these unconnected things, and that audiences would appreciate it and enjoy it. And obviously, because of that, was something that we were several years later able to get a streaming series on that Andor guy? What the hell's that going to be about?
Yeah, and I mean, remember how they were like trying to get people to watch Andor? They were it wasn't originally on Hulu, but then they brought it over to Hulu to be like, look, will somebody please watch this show that only apparently, like, it's Star Wars, and they had to pull teeth to get people to watch it because there's no lightsabers and I don't see any Jedi and
well, but I don't know if it was just this. There is a marketing phenomenon that you find when you get like trilogies of movies. That the first movie is always great because that's how you start the trilogy. The sequel often sucks. but it'll get huge box off because everybody is coming because of how good the previous film was. Then the third movie comes. They have course corrected. They have made a better film, and it does the worst box office because everybody is judging it based on the previous film that happened. I think Andor was suffering the same thing because I remember personally, we were like, oh, we're going to see Ahsoka, we're going to do Book of Boba Fett, or I can't even remember the stuff that came in like right beforehand. But there were several Star Wars properties that came up, and we're like, we're going to see this. This is going to be great. And they sucked. And I know Andor's in the background. And I remember specifically saying, I'm not reviewing Andor because I don't care about that. And I think if I had been, happier with the previous offerings, that I might have approached Andor a little bit differently. But I think that is something that has happened both with the Marvel series and with the Star Wars series, is you may get something good in the middle of that, but it is going to suffer because too much money, too much was spent creating a lot of subpar things. But also, Andor? Really? Why would you make a show about that? And oh my God, I'm so glad they did. And apparently Catherine Kennedy was a huge supporter of Tony Gilroy making the series and making it the way that he wanted to. So for all the people that go up against Catherine Kennedy is like, oh, she has killed Star Wars. She was a huge backer of Tony Gilroy making season 1. And then obviously with the success of that, huge critical success, making season 2.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the biggest takeaways is that they need to not be afraid to take risks.
Yeah.
And do things different and give everybody a chance to come around or find it like later or whatever. Because Skeleton Crew might not have been my thing, but I was happy that they tried something different. I was happy that they tried something different with Rogue One. I was happy that they tried something different with The Mandalorian. I thought like all these different ideas, like outside of maybe the Book of Boba Fett, which just kind of was like, well, it's going to be about Boba Fett. So what are they going to do? I don't know. Like, and then we saw it and it was like, oh, okay. But yeah, not everything's going to be a banger, but don't stop taking this thing to places that you're not, hadn't thought of. Do something with the material, even if it's however it gets responded to. Then you learn, you go, okay, but I think that hopefully we'll see them still. I mean, they're always going to make things for the general audience, and then hopefully they'll make things for everybody else too. Because I mean, George Lucas said it, and and just because he said it doesn't mean that like people can't feel or take anything away from it. But I mean, he still said these were things made for kids, and it doesn't mean that just kids, can like it. And it doesn't mean that there shouldn't be stuff that or couldn't be stuff that they make for adults. But if they only listen to one side of this, where we just got to toe the line and always try to draw like in people that know the original trilogy and know C-3PO and know R2 and just stick with that familiar stuff that just keeps dragging in the nostalgia, except that you don't make those nostalgia people happy. You don't. Those people, a lot of those people are stuck. They think that they want the same story to keep going forever, even though Carrie's dead in real life. There would be people that would be like, it's the whole thing with like, let's get rid of the sequel trilogy and just do them all over again. Like, and all that. It's just, a lot of these people are really stuck, but don't let those people that are stuck keep you from making stuff for the people that keep coming into this world. That like, I like the idea of people finding Andor and Rogue One as their like early entries into Star Wars, even over the original trilogy. I can't, I love whenever I hear somebody say Rogue One's my favorite, or even like the Clone Wars or the Rebels. If somebody goes like
Yeah.
Rebels is my favorite Star Wars thing, I'd be like, good. I'm glad that that's what you like found, and that if they go, well, I like those older movies, but this is, you know what I mean, like, so
Well, it's the only way to the only way to keep things fresh is to keep trying new things. You have a well established universe and rules and laws and aliens and interactions and histories between the old legends, the established canon that you have right now. You have a wealth of material that you can dive in. If you keep rehashing the same story, that is how you wear things out. One of the great successes, I think, of Marvel's first 10 years was also a place that has a very well established universe with rules and characters and all sorts of things, is you realize that the superhero film genre is a genre modifier as well.
yeah,
You have your action superhero film, but you could have your comedy action, superhero film. You could have your political thriller
right.
superhero film. You can do all these types of things, and I think that with this, you start to see that Star Wars can be, yeah, a whiz bang action franchise, or it could be a kids series, or it could be a drama. It could be an espionage drama. It could be a political thriller. You can do all of these things, and I think, yes, you will have failures, but if you keep trying new things and be sure that you focus on quality and time and clarity of vision and all of these types of important things, I think that you can find a lot of surprises. You will not run out of stories to tell because you will be slowly expanding the universe and the times that you have. And yes, Solo may not hit the way that you want it to. And Rise of Skywalker, maybe you were rehashing stuff too many times. But Rogue One was something that was interesting. That left into Andor, and even with some of the other Star Wars series, you have some other points where you could branch off. Mandalorian was a great, risk to take that spurred off a whole new era of storytelling and was able to bring in other characters and such into it. So, yeah, you've got to take these chances. And I think as fans, you've got to give them the breadth in order to try it. But I think also insisting on higher quality work will pay off for the studio and for audiences overall.
Yeah, and I think, and this just goes with that, I should go without saying, but if it disappoints you, if you don't like it, move the fuck on.
Yeah, it's not for you. They'll make something else. Like you said,
There's
Skeleton Crew
something
wasn't
always
for
going to
me.
be right around the corner.
Yeah. Skeleton Crew wasn't something for me, but Andor is. Great. Give kids something, give me something, give Rob something, give the audience. What else are you doing?
Yeah. You can always turn it off and watch something you do like. But the attitude that everything has to be for you is just so moronic.
Yeah.
And small thinking, such small thinking.
And
Get your, like, broaden your horizons, man.
and you might even be surprised with something you didn't think you would like that you actually do.
Oh, I love being proved wrong
Oh
in
yeah.
those respects. I love, like, where I'll, especially when I've been hard, where I've gone hard about, like, no, and then I watch it and I go, oh, I was wrong. Damn it. I was wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm glad, because it's like, now there's a thing I like that I didn't give a chance. So I always try to give something a chance, unless it's got the word like Twilight or Fast and Furious in the title. Those are the things where I just shut you down. Okay. but,
Yeah.
but when it comes to things that I just don't like, but that doesn't mean, all right, that still doesn't mean that somewhere down the road that somebody could make a Fast and the Furious movie that actually was good, where somebody's like, "We're gonna reboot it," and all of a sudden it like makes sense. You know what? And I'd be like, "Wow, they did it! They made one that I like. I can't believe it!" You know,
Hey,
it doesn't mean
secret
I'm gonna watch
surprise
all
out
the
there.
other ones, but
That's true. Why would you do that to yourself?
I mean, I heard Tokyo Drift is all right. You know,
Oh, jeez.
maybe that's
No,
the one for me. You know, like I
nice
don't know.
pull. Nice pull. All right. Well, if we're talking Tokyo Drift, I think we've hit our limit here at this point. So I think that is going to wrap things up. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Hopefully, you watched all the Andor stuff. Definitely appreciate you joining us for here. We do these semi-regularly, cover a lot of Star Wars, cover a lot of superhero stuff on the channel. Often have this guy right here with me, so that's always good. We're going to be taking a little break for the moment, but you can catch me at least this coming weekend, Sunday, Monday, whenever it comes out, over on Smirking Gun Reviews as we talk the season finale of The Last of Us, Part 2, Season 2, Part 2, Part 1. What are we calling it, Rob?
It's The Last of Us Part 2, Part 1.
Yes, very good. That's it.
The end of that, the finale of Part 1 of Part 2. And then next season will be Part 2 of Part 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which,
and
according to Variety, is definitely going to be Abby focused. So you
Okay.
were quite right with all that speculation.
And so what my plans are is we're going to end The Last of Us this Sunday. And what I like to do is put myself in a corner here. And say that 2 weeks after that is when I would like us to finally, if we can't, we'll work it out. But tentatively, because we've been talking about this for months and I've been up and down and blah, 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 and life in the world and everything in between. But we've been planning on doing a Big Trouble in Little China video for a long time.
Because it's the greatest movie ever.
And we're going to talk about that on my channel within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Like a couple of weeks from now-ish, maybe 2.5. But I'm putting myself in a corner by putting it out there, making it so that I have to do it now. No more putting it off. I was like, kind of one of the reasons why I was like excited to do this was to get me into that mode, to talk about something besides a series, talk about a movie and how long we could like talk about it. And also goes into what we also are going to be doing, which we'll be doing working on a podcasty thing that we're going to be working and tweaking and figuring out what that is. And I've got things that we're going to talk about like off the air and stuff, that how we're going to do that. But that's what's going on. Because after The Last of Us, I don't have anything really planned either. But I want to keep this kind of momentum going where we can talk about things and other like either life or pop culture stuff consistently without having to be on necessarily a schedule because of a show or anything like that. So that's what's going on.
Excellent. Now I can give one in the future sneak preview of something we will be talking about, because we kept wanting to go and talk about season 1 while we were in the midst of covering another show that doesn't actually exist. It only existed in a parallel universe, and that was destroyed, so we don't even talk about it. But coming up into summer here, we've got Peacemaker season 2.
Oh yeah.
So I think we're going to have to talk about that, because season 1 was really a very unexpected joy for me. And
okay, yeah.
And I know that we kept wanting to jump into it while we were discussing other things that sucked. So let's talk about things that don't suck, and that's going to be Peacemaker season 2 coming up, I think August, if I remember.
Oh, okay. So that's down the road.
Yeah, that's down the road. I don't know if I'm doing Iron Heart. I don't know. Probably not.
I don't know. Maybe we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Wait and see. It's a wait and see.
We'll wait
Maybe
and see. Time's a weird soup, so August could be here. It'll feel like forever, or it'll feel like tomorrow. So,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
be on the lookout for all that stuff, folks.
All right. So, Smirking Gun Reviews, like and subscribe right here. And we are out of here as usual. So long. Take care. Watch out for those Nazis.